What is Ebbo? That is what we're going to be getting into today, family. Before we delve into this topic, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and tap on that button right below this video. Josephbabaifa here once again here at Botanica Candles More. Question from one of our viewers, so let's get right into it. Ebbo. To really understand what Ebbo is, we really got to delve into the word, right? So the word Ebbo means sacrifice, or I sacrifice, right? A lot of people get confused because you hear the word Ebbo thrown around so, commonly that people are not sure what they're referring to. Like you'll hear someone say, this is an Ebbo, or they'll say, I did Ebbo, and then they'll say, they did something that sounds completely different. So the word Ebbo technically applies to everything that we offer, right, or that we sacrifice. And Adimu is an Ebbo. Any type of offering technically is an Ebbo because we sacrificed to be able to provide that, whether it be a glass of water, whether it be an animal, whether it be our time, or sacrificing our own desires to be able to fulfill iwapele, or good conduct, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get into some of the popular ones so we can kind of get a gauge on what Ebbo is. Now, mind you, within at least the vernacular of Ifa, usually when we're referring to Ebbo, we're referring to Ebbo Oponfa, right? So to really understand what that is, I'm going to go ahead and pull out some of my Baba tools here to kind of explain what that is. And the first thing we're going to look at is the Oponfa, which is a tablet of Ifa, or the tray of Ifa, right? This is known as Oponfa. The word Opon means tablet, and Fa is, something that it's a short version of saying Ifa, right? And you're going to see one of these when we're talking about the Ebbo Oponfa. Oponfa means tablet, and Fa refers to Ifa, and Ebbo means sacrifice. So Ebbo Oponfa means the sacrifice done on the tablet of Ifa. You're also going to see another name for this instrument, which is Alaiku, referring to the Oponfa as basically the owner of death, or he who controls death or has control over it, whether it comes or whether it stays at bay, right? Being that Orumila is the one who really, dictates when someone goes, right? Based on Ebbo and etc. So that's why we do Ebbo, to be able to protect ourselves from the Ajogun, which are the negativities within the universe, of which the main one is death, right? Or lack of function. Right? So that's the first thing. And we're going to get into what this powder is on top in a little bit, right? So that's the first thing. So Ebbo Oponfa is performed by us, the Babalawos, right? A couple other things you're going to see when at least an Afro-Cuban Babalawo is performing Ebbo, or a couple different instruments, right? You're going to see an Iruke, as it's known, and in traditional it's Irukere, which is the horse tail, depending on whatever material it's made from, but it's a tail of some sorts that is utilized. You're also going to have something known as Irofa, which is the deer antler, which is utilized in the Afro-Cuban tradition. Now, within the traditional Ifa, you're going to see something known as Iroke, which is this bell right here, which is usually of an Abetebi figure, or possibly an Ochun figure, right? And it's a bell to be able to invoke Ifa. And basically the deer antler replaced this in the New World, right? Based on various Odu, of course. So those are the tools you're going to see. Also, when we're talking about Ebbo, at least on the Oponfa, or through Ifa by the Babalawo, you're going to see a powder on the tablet. And this powder specifically is Ierosun. In Obeade, Ierosun was identified as Orumila's blood, or life force. And we're going to delve into the concepts behind that logic as well. In Afro-Cuban tradition, you're going to see a material known as Iyefa, or Iye Ishu, which is the powder of the yam, right? And this was identified in Owani Wofun, or Owonkrim Wofun, where it was utilized, right? And even before then, you might even see some other Babalaos use different types of powders for different types of things to get different results. It could also be based on their Odu of Ifa, right? Everybody has their own specific medicine that they use. And even before the yam powder, Ewefa was used, which was the basically accumulation of herbs throughout Ifa ceremonies. So a couple of the different things you might see when you're doing Ebbo, amongst others. But at least if you see these things, the Ebbo is somewhat coherent, right, to begin with. So that's the first thing. So why do we do Ebbo Oponfa? So when we do a divination, a sign comes out. And that sign has to be brought down from heaven. And whenever a sign comes down from heaven, or it manifests, it has sacrifices or debts that it comes with, right? So what happens is when you do a dafa or a daopele, when you do a consultation or solde, however you refer to it, you're going to reveal a sign, or an odu is going to manifest. So for it to be able to come up, it has debts because it had to basically promise something before it came down from heaven. So that is revealed through the manipulation of Ebo and the competency of the Bawalao to identify what that specific debt you're living under at that moment is, or even if it's more epic from an initiation, we have to know what your celestial debts is, and that comes out through the divination as well. So once we know what the debts are, we need to fulfill them so that our ori, or our head, can live in harmony with our ambiance at that moment, or just in general through our destiny, depending if it is an initiation. And once we do that, the way we cleanse our debts is by making sacrifice, or ebo, right? So when you see the ebo ponfa occurring, you're going to notice all of these implements, you're going to notice the powder on top, and you're going to notice your sacrifice should be there as well. And you're going to see the Babalawo begin to manipulate the materials that are on top of the tray, as well as interact with the offering, as well as your ori in continuous fashion. What is the concept behind this? I mentioned that Ierosung was recognized as the blood of Orumila, right? And Ierosung is pretty much nothing more than termite vomit, right? So what happens is in Nigeria, you basically have the Osum tree. May God bless it. It was identified as one of the most divine trees in existence. And in Nigeria, they'll get trees like this, or they'll find them when they're basically torn down, and they'll put them in a mill, or more traditionally, they'll put them in a house and allow termites to basically eat it, right? And obviously, through the repercussions of this, a powder is formed, and it's harvested and used by the Ifa priests. So it was identified that this was going to be Orumila's natural material of blood, right? Even though he had already transitioned, passed on, or ascended, however you want to interpret that. And if you look at Christianity, not to make parallels necessarily, but there is a common truth between all faiths, and you're always going to see common things. They speak of the blood of Christ, right? We're going to bathe in the blood of Christ, or we're going to consume the blood of Christ, which is the wine that converts itself during the Mass. So Ifa is kind of no different, because what happens is, as I'm invoking each Odu, I'm taking some of the powder and I'm touching it to your Ori, or your destiny. So I'm bathing your destiny, or repairing your destiny, in the blood of Orumila, right? And it is through this that Ori begins repairing itself, realigning itself, and we're facilitating it so that it can grasp onto the opportunities or things that we have pending to be able to live the life we're meant to, which is ultimately going to make us happy. So when we're talking about Ebbo, what Ebbo does is it repairs our Ori, or aligns or realigns our Ori, so that we achieve what we're meant to, whether we're any day and we're just trying to achieve the blessing that is right in front of us, but we can't because Ori is not allowing us to get there because it's not in a state to allow us to, or in Ayewo, where we need to convert it into something positive so that we don't fall into that facet, right? So that is the purpose of Ebbo. Just like every other concept in the universe, actions and repercussions, actions, reactions, sacrifice, basically rewards. So we need to sacrifice to be able to achieve things in life. Nothing comes without sacrifice. So Ifa is no different. So that is the purpose of Ebbo. We sacrifice to receive, or we sacrifice, more importantly, to harmonize. Just because we do Ebbo, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to go wonderfully, or we're going to win the lotto, or people unfortunately don't miraculously recover even from a health standpoint. And that's the humility that comes with Ifa and being an Ifa practitioner, that even though we're in contact with really divine entities and energies, that does not make us God. Basically, what we're doing with Ebbo is, once we're done with the invocations and everything, we prepared it in a very specific way to harmonize it with nature. So when we take it to, obviously, the Ojubo Eshu, or the Eshu shrine, and then apart from that, at least in the Afro-Cuban tradition, they're going to ask you to take it to another location. And that is an offering to nature to harmonize you, or your Ori, with the world, right? So you guys can begin flowing and things can start happening and get much better, right? And if they're good, even more better than that, right? The concept is known as Ifafore. So, we have those kind of things. So that's the first Ebbo. You're going to hear other Ebbos as well. You have Ebbo Iwapele, which is the Ebbo of good character, where Ifa says that you could sacrifice 100 elephants, 1,000 roosters, 10,000 obis. Nothing is going to work if you have not made the sacrifice of Iwapele. So we have to overcome ourself, our desires, our lower states of consciousness to be able to do the right thing. Because I've seen many older babalawos, and you notice that a lot of them don't actually perform Ebo that frequently. And I always thought it was something that had to do with age. Maybe you need it less as you go on. No. What happened is that with age, presumably, comes wisdom and comes good character. So I remember I was speaking to an elderly babalawo, and he explained the concept. Joseph, you're diligent with Ifa, you do Ebo, you're competent, all of these things. Just know that even if you don't do Ebo and you have good character, you still have a great capacity to live an amazing life. Ebo is simply to add upon that. But if you live your Odu to perfection and you have faith in Ifa and you live the characteristics of Orumila, you will always be Ire, right? So that is probably even more important than any other Ebo we can do. If we don't have good character, if we don't assimilate the philosophy of Ifa, we are not going to ever see the results of a life sacrifice, or even a cup of water or an obi, right? So that's really the first Ebo that needs to be done. You're going to hear other Ebos known as Ebo Shure, right? One of the Odus where this was identified was in Obeyonu, right? And this is known, at least one way of it being interpreted, is the Ebo of the poor, or the Ebo of offerings, right? Where basically someone, when this is identified, is meant to ask people that they consider friends and family to provide them with food items to be able to place in front of the Orisha. This has two goals. One is so that the person doesn't have to labor to be able to achieve the things that they want, being that when you ask for things for free, you're not laboring to achieve or to progress, right? The other concept is that if you're able to ask somebody for food and they don't give it to you for whatever reason, they're not people you can depend on. So the Orisha is also trying to show you who your real friends are, right? If I can ask you for a glass of water, which is the most basic courtesy within Yoruba culture, and you don't respond, what can I really expect from you on a human level? So that's another Ebo there, Ebo Shure. You're also within the Afro-Cuban tradition going to hear about Ebo Keun or Dukeun, which is basically one way of translating it. We sacrifice a little bit today with this time, or we sacrifice a little bit today, and then we sacrifice a little bit tomorrow. Little by little for the mouth, or little by little to the deity, where basically you identify the vibratory number of the Orisha and you offer edible items over that amount of time to the Orisha, that quantity of items. So let's say we're talking about Obadala, right? And Obadala's number is frequently 8 or any of its multiples. You're going to provide 8 offerings over the course of 8 days to Obadala while invoking him, right? And this is really so that things that are going to take time and patience allow us to really gain that skill set from the Orisha, so we can actually achieve those things. Because the Orisha is telling us right off the gate, it's going to take patience and diligence and good character to be able to achieve these things. So every offering that we're due is teaching us a lesson, right? Bringing us back to Iwapele, the sacrifice, the diligence, the organization, all of the concepts that Ifa is really founded upon. And most importantly, respect and ultimately love, right? Because if you respect something, you're patient with it. If you love something, you're patient with it. And that's what Ebo is. It is sacrifice. It is going against our own indulgences to be able to align ourselves and achieve the goal and harmonize ourselves with nature. So those are a couple of different Ebos. Ebo, in my opinion, right, and what I've been able to kind of gather together by being around a lot of really good priests and having really good elders and teachers, is that there's a couple minimum things we have to do based on our initiatory status. For someone who has Hand of Ifa, in my opinion, you have about 4 obligations a year, right? And they could be spaced out 3 months at a time, my opinion, based on results. The first one is you're going to get your annual reading, right? To see what you're manifesting that year, because we have to know what is expected of us, or what to expect when we come into that year. You're going to do whatever comes out in that divination. Number 2, you're going to want to definitely do an Ebo from your Odu of Ifa. So let's say you're Okanaika, you're basically going to sit down with your Baba, and we're going to identify some of the situations that you're going through and kind of look for a verse that really exemplifies that. We're going to ask Ifa, and we're going to see if that's the one we should do right now, right? So definitely we want to do that, because one thing is what we're living right now, and then it falls under the umbrella of who we are in general. Like me, I am Ire de Suka. Let's say I come with a divination of Ofunchewe, right? That's what I'm vibrating this year. Always under the guidance and under the umbrella of Ide de Suga, but I have to know how to interact with the world apart from myself in, parallel, so that, I'm harmonized completely, right? If you have hand of Ifa, ideally you want to feed Eshu once a year, right? So that's another Ebo, right? That could even be referred to as Ebo Eje, which means the Ebo, or the sacrifice of Eje, or blood. So we definitely want to appease Eshu, and this is really for everybody. You definitely want to take care of Eshu once a year. And Eshu might like candies and all these other things, but he's bloodthirsty. He likes his rooster. He likes his goat. You definitely want to appease this gentleman. And if you have hand of Ifa, you want to appease Orumila as well. And if you have the means, feed Orumila again, right, with his predilect animals, and just always keeping your things up to date, right? And this can be spaced out because things can get costly very quickly. Everything has to be organized, and we kind of want to give a little bit of space sometimes so we can allow the universe to readjust, and we can really see that progress from the things we're doing, because that's important. That's what keeps us motivated. I fed Eshu, oh my God, this wonderful thing happened, or I avoided this catastrophe, or things are okay, let's move on to the next step. And it's like that with everything in the religion, whether you're receiving deities, whether you're performing ebos from your Odu, everything has to be at a pace, right? So these are some of the ebos. If you're an Olorisha, you definitely want to appease your guardian Orisha once a year, along with Eshu, at least, right? Apart from the other things we've mentioned, even from the hand of Ifa standpoint. And as a Babalawo, definitely want to appease Orumila and Eshu as well. And these are done during moments known as the festivals, right? Whether it be the Orisha or Ifa festival, right? So it's just a commemoration of our initiation, right? Another type of Ebo is going to be the Ibori, or the Ebori, which means I offer Ebo to Ori, or I appease Ori. Definitely on an annual basis, this is something we want to do as well, especially if we're initiated in a priesthood, because, or if we've already fulfilled our debt with Ori and received our Ori icon. So these are definitely things that are pretty base minimum, so that we just maintain spiritually, and anything after that is purely luxury. If you're able to and you have the means to, and you want to invest more in your spiritual self, not a bad idea, just so that things continue flowing harmoniously. Does not mean negative things can't happen. Very slim though. If we have good character and we perform sacrifice, life should be very gratifying, other than unfortunately the negativities we're predestined to go through, which no one can change. At the end of the day, Ebo does nothing more than play with the gray area between what's destined and what's avoidable. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you came down from heaven with, the predestined fact of you were meant to go through a pain in your toe, right? So there's various levels of that. Let's say if you don't do Ebo, you're going to lose the toe. God forbid, you get the toe cut right off through a tragedy, right? But if you do Ebo, maybe it only involves us stubbing our toe on the wall. Not great, but much better than losing the digit. So you see, that's how Ebo really works. Apart from that, Ebo is going to help you recognize opportunities. Ebo is going to help you take steps you didn't realize that you were able to. It opens up, and that really centralizes on Ifa's idea of the power of the mind. Usually we have all the resources we need. It's just a matter of having the mentality to see how we can utilize them in a way to get to our most our nearest goal, right? So to everybody that watched the video, thank you. That is Ebo. Amongst others, you have so many different ones. You're going to hear things like Aguaramao. You're going to hear things like the Ebo Ate. You hear the Ebo de Caracol, the Ebo Meta. Ebo is everything. The basis of our religion is Ebo, right? And ultimately, even before that, the basis of our religion is Ori. And we perform Ebo to harmonize and repair our Ori so we can live a better life and basically interact better with nature and ultimately the universe. So that is what Ebo is for. If you watched the video, thank you so much. Please be sure to subscribe, comment, put your own questions up here, guys. Botanica Candles and More thanks you. Josephbabaifa, I thank you. Channel is growing wonderfully. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to us. If you're interested in a consultation, please do so as well. Contact the Botanica at 407-440-2086. And from all of us here, including myself, josephbabaifa, wishing you a lot of blessings on this wonderful day. Take care, guys. Do Ebo.